Thank you, Harold. I'm really glad that Dow and Rick have already talked about the governance structure and the 80% of the money that came from the federal government to provide the funds to build the 2 new boats. Because I really think what's most fitting today is that we talk about David Spencer Maynard, the namesake of the boat itself. Doc Maynard, to his friends, he was a medical doctor, had played a role in building Cleveland, Ohio. And he came west to build another city just like Cleveland. We're so glad he failed. Doc was much older than many of the other settlers in Seattle. He was a ripe old age of 42 when he came west. And he was unusual in many ways. First of all, as a doctor coming out the Oregon Trail, he was willing to treat other travelers for diseases that were common along the Oregon Trail. Many other healthcare professionals, docs, wouldn't have done so. They were worried about getting sick themselves. They wanted to run out and make their own land claim. Doc, however, was treating people, joined one particular wagon party, and was unable to save one young man. But through heroic efforts on the doctor's part, he was able to save the young, attractive, and now wealthy widow Catherine. He felt an obligation to her, so he traveled with her and her wagon party the rest of the way out the Oregon Trail. And it was a lovely story. They got to know one another, they fell in love, and they got married. I know what you're thinking, it was not right away. It was 3 weeks later when they got to Olympia. Maybe a rushed marriage, but they had a great relationship, a marriage of over 20 years until the doctor's death, and a really happy marriage. However, they hit a rough patch about 4 years into the marriage. That's when the doctor's first wife from Cleveland sent word that she was going to come west and join him. Yeah, good doctor. Not so good on the memory. I think it was the bourbon. But Doc did so much for us. He was unusual, as I said, in many ways. In one of those ways, once he got to Seattle and got settled, he was actually making friends with the Native Americans in the area, something pretty unusual at the time. But he formed a lifelong friendship with the chief of the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes, Chief Seattle. It was Doc who actually persuaded the other settlers to name the new settlement after they'd moved from West Seattle to what we now know as downtown after the chief, and persuaded the chief to allow us to use his name. So we're grateful for our name, which we're appreciative of, but he brought us so much more. He knew, having played a role in building Cleveland, he knew what it would take to get a city moving. Businesses, an economy. He was selling pieces of his land claim. His downtown land claim started at Yesler and went north. It was his fight with Arthur Denny that led to the disconnect of the streets at Yesler. He was selling pieces of his land claim really cheap, on the condition that you open a business and have it running within 90 days. If not, he could repossess it and sell it to somebody else who would. He brought us our first general store, our first hospital, our first salmon cannery, and our first divorce laws. He needed them. He also brought us our economic founding father. He brought us Henry Yesler. He knew that Henry Yesler was traveling west with the plans and the equipment for a steam-powered sawmill. That would be exactly what we needed to really get our economy moving in Seattle. He was able to persuade Henry Yesler to locate the sawmill here in Seattle by giving him a prime piece of land right on the waterfront, the first in Yesler today. Never mind, it didn't belong to Doc, but he gave away that piece of land anyway. But I think it led to great economic development in early Seattle and has continued. Not only the sawmill, but not worried about making money on his land claim, but bringing the investment, the other businesses, the other base we needed for our community. I think it's most fitting that we're naming our new King County water taxi after someone who not only had a home in West Seattle, but a home in downtown as well, has that connection between the ends of the route, and also knows what it takes to get a city moving. I couldn't be happier we're naming the new water taxi after Doc Maynard. Thank you.